Roger William Corman is an American film director, producer, and actor. He has been called the Pope of pop cinema, and is known as a trailblazer in the world of independent film. Many of Corman's films are based on works that have an already established critical reputation, such as his cycle of low-budget cult films adapted from the tales of Edgar Allan Poe. In 1964, Corman, admired by members of the French New Wave and Cahiers du Cinéma, became the youngest filmmaker to have a retrospective at the Cinémathèque Française, as well as in the British Film Institute and the Museum of Modern Art. He was the co-founder of New World Pictures, the founder of New Concorde, and is a longtime member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. In 2009, he was awarded an Honorary Academy Award for his rich engendering of films and filmmakers. Corman mentored and gave a start to many young film directors such as Francis Ford Coppola, Ron Howard, Martin Scorsese, Jonathan Demme, Peter Bogdanovich, Joe Dante, John Sayles, and James Cameron, and was highly influential in the new Hollywood filmmaking movement of the 1960s and 1970s. He also helped to launch the careers of actors like Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson, Dennis Hopper, Bruce Dern, Sylvester Stallone, Diane Ladd, and William Shatner. Corman has occasionally taken minor acting roles in the films of directors who started with him, including The Silence of the Lambs, The Godfather Part II, Apollo 13, The Manchurian Candidate, and Philadelphia. A documentary about Corman's life and career entitled Corman's World: Exploits of a Hollywood Rebel, directed by Alex Stapleton, premiered at the Sundance and Cannes Film Festivals in 2011. The film's TV rights were picked up by A&E Indie Films after a well-received screening at Sundance. Early film career: Corman found work at 20th Century Fox initially in the mailroom. He worked his way up to a story reader. The one property that he liked the most and provided ideas for was filmed as The Gunfighter with Gregory Peck. When Corman received no credit at all, he left Fox and decided he would work in film by himself. Under the GI Bill, Corman studied English literature at Oxford University and lived in Paris for a time. He then returned to Los Angeles and tried to re-establish himself in the film industry. He took various jobs, including television stagehand at Clack and a messenger at Fox. He worked as an assistant to agent Dick Hyland, a literary agent. Highway Dragnet. Corman wrote a script in his spare time and sold it to William F. Broidy at Allied Artists for $2,000. "Dick thought it was funny and let me pay myself a commission," said Corman. Originally called House in the Sea, it was retitled as Highway Dragnet, and starred Richard Conte and Joan Bennett. Corman also worked as associate producer on the film for nothing, just for the experience. Producer Corman used his script fee and personal contacts to raise $12,000 to produce his first feature, a science fiction film, Monster from the Ocean Floor. It was produced by Corman's own company, Palo Alto, and released by Robert L. Lippert. The film did well enough to encourage Corman to produce another film, the racing car thriller The Fast and the Furious, directed by its star, John Ireland, and co-starring Dorothy Malone. Decades later, producer Neil H. Moritz and Universal Pictures licensed the title for the 2001 franchise-launching film, The Fast and the Furious. Moritz had difficulty choosing between proposed titles Racer X, Redline, Race Wars, and Street Wars, and was inspired by a documentary on American International Pictures that included Corman's film. Moritz was able to trade the use of some stock footage to Corman for use of the title. Corman sold the movie to a new independent company, the American Releasing Company, run by James H. Nicholson and Samuel Z. Arkoff. Although Corman had a number of offers for the film from Republic and Columbia, he elected to go with ARC because they undertook to advance money to enable him to make 2 more movies. Director Corman's second film for ARC was one he decided to direct, Five Guns West, a western, made in color for around $60,000, with Malone and John Lund. The script was written by Robert Wright Campbell, who worked with Corman on several more occasions. Corman announced he would make 4 more projects for ARC: High Steel, Cobra, Fortress Beneath the Sea, and an untitled film from Campbell. Instead, Corman did some uncredited directing on The Beast with a Million Eyes, then made another western, Apache Woman, starring Lloyd Bridges, written by Lou Russoff. Russoff and Corman reunited on Day the World Ended, a post-apocalyptic science fiction film, which was popular. Corman was to make The Devil on Horseback by Charles B. Griffith about the Brownsville raid, but it was too expensive. The Woolner brothers, Louisiana drive-in owners, financed Corman's Swamp Women, a Girls on the Lam saga. He returned to ARC for 2 westerns, The Oklahoma Woman and Gunslinger. Gunslinger was co-written by Griffith, who became a crucial collaborator with Corman over the next 5 years. He bought a script from Curtis Harrington, The Girl from Beneath the Sea. Harrington made it for Corman years later as Night Tide. American International Pictures and Allied Artists ARC changed its name to American International Pictures. Corman was established as their leading filmmaker. They financed Corman's next film as director, the science fiction story It Conquered the World. Co-written by Griffith, it was a follow-up to The Day the World Ended. It was a big hit. He optioned a TV play The Stake and hoped to get Dana Andrews to star. It was never made. Instead, Walter Mirisch of Allied Artists hired Corman to make The Undead, inspired by the search for Bridie Murphy. Griffith wrote the script. In June, Corman made a science fiction film for Allied Artists, Not of This Earth, written by Griffith. In August 1956, AIP financed a Corman heist movie shot in Hawaii, Naked Paradise, co-written by Griffith. Corman shot it back-to-back with a movie made with his own money, She Gods of Shark Reef. Corman wound up selling the movie to AIP. Corman and Griffith reunited in Attack of the Crab Monsters for Allied, which wound up being one of his most successful early films. For his own production company, Corman made a rock and roll Carnival Rock, released by Hauco. Rock All Night was a heist film written by Griffith expanded from a TV play, The Little Guy, with musical acts inserted. He was meant to make Rock and Roll Girl for AIP in December 1957. In April 1957, Corman announced he would try to make 2 films back-to-back from then on to save costs. Corman made 2 teen girl noirs, Teenage Doll for the Woolner Brothers and Sorority Girl, starring Susan Cabot for AIP. For AIP, he made The Saga of the Viking Women and Their Voyage to the Waters of the Great Sea Serpent, shot in August 1957. He was meant to follow this with Teenage Jungle by Tony Miller. The success of Not of This Earth and Crab Monsters led to Allied offering Corman a 4-picture deal for 1958. Machine Gun Kelly and producing Corman received his first serious critical praise for Machine Gun Kelly, an AIP biopic of the famous gangster, which gave Charles Bronson his first leading role and co-starred Cabot. Campbell wrote the script. Also for AIP, he did Teenage Caveman, with Robert Vaughn, originally titled Prehistoric World. He helped produce 2 films for Allied Artists, both from scripts by Leo Gordon. Hot Car Girl, directed by Bernard Kowalski and produced by his brother Gene from a script by Gordon. And The Cry Baby Killer, which gave Jack Nicholson his first starring role. He had his biggest budget yet for I, Mobster, a gangster story, co-produced by Edward L. Alperson and Corman's brother Gene for 20th Century Fox. In September 1958, he was reported as scouting locations in Australia to do a remake of H. Rider Haggard's She. War of the Satellites was conceived and shot in record time to take advantage of the Sputnik launch. It was his first collaboration with art director Daniel Haller. Corman also produced, but did not direct, Stakeout on Dope Street, directed by Irvin Kershner. Night of the Blood Beast, directed by Kowalski for AIP, using leftover costumes from Teenage Caveman. And Crime and Punishment USA, directed by Dennis Sanders with George Hamilton in his first lead role. The film group in January 1959, Corman announced he would be moving into distribution. In 1959, Corman founded the film group with his brother Gene, a company producing or releasing low-budget black and white films as double features for drive-ins and action houses. In February 1959, Film Group announced they would release 10 films. Their first movies were High School Big Shot and T-Bird Gang, produced by Stanley Bickman. For AIP, Corman and Griffith made a black comedy, A Bucket of Blood. Corman announced he would follow it with a similar comedy, The Bloodshot Private Eye. It does not seem to have been made. Instead, Griffith reused the same script structure and Corman employed many of the same cast in The Little Shop of Horrors. This film was reputedly shot in 2 days and 1 night. For Film Group, Corman directed The Wasp Woman, starring Cabot from a script by Gordon. His brother and he made 2 films back-to-back in South Dakota, Ski Troop Attack, a war movie written by Griffith and directed by Corman, and Beast from Haunted Cave, the first film directed by Monty Hellman. Corman went to Puerto Rico and produced another 2 films back-to-back, Battle of Blood Island, directed by Joel Rapp, and Last Woman on Earth, directed by Corman from a script by Robert Towne. Filming on these 2 films went so quickly that Corman commissioned Griffith to write a third, which was shot at the same time, Creature from the Haunted Sea. Corman was going to make Part-Time Mother from a script by Griffith, but it appears to have never been made. House of Usher AIP wanted Corman to make 2 horror films for them, in black and white, at under $100,000 each on a 10-day shooting schedule. Corman, however, was tired of making films on this sort of budget, and was worried the market for them was in decline. He proposed making a film in color for $200,000, shot over 15 days. Corman proposed an adaptation of The Fall of the House of Usher, by Edgar Allan Poe and AIP agreed. The film was announced in May 1959. Richard Matheson was hired to do the adaptation and Vincent Price was brought in to star. Haller did the art direction. The resulting film, House of Usher, shot in early 1960, was a critical and commercial hit. Following this, Corman bought 2 scripts, Sob Sisters Don't Cry and Copkiller. In March 1960, Corman announced that Film Group would be part of an international production group, Compass Productions. He directed A Peplum in Greece, Atlas in August. He was going to direct a thriller from a script by Robert Towne, I Flew a Spy Plane Over Russia. It was not made. Neither were 2 comedies he was to make with Dick Miller and John Hayes, Murder at the Convention and Pan and the Satyrs. House of Usher had been so successful the AIP wanted a follow-up, and Corman, Haller, Matheson and Price reunited on The Pit and the Pendulum. It was another sizable hit and the Poe cycle of films was underway. Corman hired Charles Beaumont to write Mask of the Red Death and announced 2 films, Captain Nemo and the Floating City and House of Secrets. The Intruder following The Pit and the Pendulum. Corman directed one of William Shatner's earliest appearances in a lead role with The Intruder. Based on a novel by Charles Beaumont, the film was co-produced by Gene Corman, starred William Shatner and was shot in July and August 1961. It took a while for the film to be released and it lost money. Corman was unhappy with his profit participation on the first 2 Poe films, so he made a third adaptation for different producers, The Premature Burial, written by Charles Beaumont and starring Ray Milland. The film was co-financed by Path Labs. AIP put pressure on Path and ended up buying out their interest. For producer Edward Small, Corman made a historical horror piece about Richard III, Tower of London, starring Vincent Price. It was meant to be the first in a 3-picture deal with Small, but Corman did not enjoy working with the producer. For Film Group, he also bought the rights to a Soviet science fiction film, Nebo Zoviot, and had some additional footage shot for it by his then assistant, Francis Ford Coppola. The result was Battle Beyond the Sun. He also released The Magic Voyage of Sinbad, dubbed from a Soviet film. The 4th Poe was an anthology, Tales of Terror, shot in late 1961. One of the installments, The Black Cat, was a comedy, inspiring Corman to do a whole Poe story comedically next, The Raven. Later, Corman used the sets for that film for The Terror, made for Film Group but released by AIP, and starring Boris Karloff and Jack Nicholson. Corman did not direct all of this film. Additional scenes were shot by Monty Hellman, Coppola, and Jack Hill, among others. The Young Racers was produced and directed by Corman in Europe for AIP, starring and written by Campbell. Working on the film was Francis Ford Coppola, whom Corman financed to make his directorial debut, Dementia 13. Back in the US, Corman made X. The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, a contemporary science fiction film for AIP starring Ray Milland. He followed it with The Haunted Palace, ostensibly part of the Poe cycle. It featured Price and was made for AIP, written by Beaumont, but was actually based on a story by H.P. Lovecraft. Corman directed a war film in Yugoslavia with his brother, The Secret Invasion, with Stuart Granger and Mickey Rooney, from a script by Campbell. Following this, he announced he would make The Life of Robert E. Lee as part of a 4-picture deal with Film Group worth $3.75 million. Other movies were Fun and Profit by Joel Rapp, The Wild Surfers by John Lamb, and Planet of Storms by Jack Hill. None of these films was made, nor was The Gold Bug, a Poe adaptation written by Griffith. End of the Poe cycle and filming in Europe. Corman made 2 Poes in England starring Price, the much-delayed The Mask of the Red Death, with Campbell rewriting Beaumont's scripts, and The Tomb of Ligeia, from a script by Robert Towne. Corman made no further Poes. AIP started up a fresh Poe cycle in the late 1960s, but Corman was not part of it. Corman got Towne to write a script called The Red Baron. He bought the rights to another Soviet science fiction film, Planet of Burr, and had some additional footage added to it by Curtis Harrington. The result was Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet. Harrington used footage from Planet of Burr in another film financed by Corman, Queen of Blood. He also bought the rights to a Yugoslavian film, Operation Titan, and financed additional shooting by Jack Hill and Stephanie Rothman. The result was Bloodbath. He also had an investment in the Beach Party films Beach Ball and It's a Bikini World. Working for major studios, Corman said, "For 10 years as an independent I could get financing for $100 minus $200 to $300,000 pictures. Everything had been interesting, artistically satisfying, economically satisfying. But I decided I was going nowhere and wanted to move directly into the business. So I accepted a contract with Columbia." In August 1965, Corman announced he had signed a contract with United Artists to make 2 films over 3 years. He also signed with Columbia to make a Western, The Long Ride Home, based on a script by Robert Towne. He was announced for a number of other projects at Columbia, the biopic of Robert E. Lee, an adaptation of Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, an adaptation of Kafka's The Penal Colony, and a script by novelist Richard Yates about the Battle of Iwo Jima. He intended to make The Deserters for UA, from a script by Wright, but that was not made either. He later reflected, "Every idea I submitted was considered too strange, too weird. Every idea they had seemed too ordinary to me. Ordinary pictures don't make money." The Wild Angels. After a year of not directing, Corman took a leave of absence under his contract with Columbia to make a film for AIP, the first biker movie, The Wild Angels. It starred Peter Fonda and Nancy Sinatra, from a script by Griffith. Peter Bogdanovich worked as Corman's assistant. The film opened the 1966 Venice Film Festival and was hugely successful at the box office, making over $6 million on a $350,000 budget and kicking off the biker movie cycle. He wanted to make a film about the Red Baron, but Columbia turned it down because of the Blue Max. He proposed a movie about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre and also an adaptation of the novel Only Lovers Left Alive. Nick Ray was meant to be making Only Lovers in Britain. Corman did begin directing Long Ride Home with Glenn Ford at Columbia. However, Corman left production a few weeks into the shoot in June 1966 and was replaced by Phil Carlson. The film was retitled A Time for Killing. Corman received an offer to direct a studio film, The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, for 20th Century Fox, starring Jason Robards and George Segal. He did not enjoy the restrictions of working for a major studio. He was given a $2.5 million budget and made it for $400,000 less. Corman, an independent director, was most comfortable in his own style, shoestring budgets and shooting schedules measured in days, rather than weeks. Nonetheless, it is generally considered one of his best films as a director. Corman was meant to follow this with Robert E. Lee for United Artists at a budget of $4.5 million. It was not made. Neither was a story Corman optioned, The Spy in the Vatican. Returned to independence, he continued to finance films for Film Group. Voyage to the Prehistoric Planet, dubbing and Soviet movie Planeta Burr into English with some additional footage shot by Curtis Harrington. Queen of Blood, using some Soviet footage but a mostly new film, directed by Harrington. Bloodbath, an adapted Yugoslavian film with additional footage shot by Stephanie Rothman and Jack Hill. Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women, yet another dubbed version of Planeta Burr with some additional footage shot by Corman's then-assistant Peter Bogdanovich. He had money in Navy vs. The Night Monsters. He financed 2 westerns shot back-to-back in Utah directed by Monty Hellman and written and co-produced by Jack Nicholson, The Shooting and Ride in the Whirlwind, which became cult successes. He also financed 2 films directed by Dan Holler, Devil's Angels, a follow-up to Wild Angels written by Griffith, and a car racing film shot in Europe, The Wild Racers. He announced a comedy about the population explosion, There Just Isn't Any Room, but it appears to have never been made. Corman directed The Trip for AIP, written by Jack Nicholson and starring Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper and Bruce Dern. This began the psychedelic film craze of the late 1960s, and was the American entry at Cannes that year. AIP made some changes to the film in post-production which made Corman unhappy. In September 1967, he announced plans to build a new film studio. However, this did not happen for a number of years. Corman made a film for American TV, Target, Harry, shot in Europe with his brother producing. He did some uncredited directing on AIP's De Chaudet when director Cy Enfield fell ill. He financed Bogdanovich's first feature, Targets, which incorporated footage from The Terror. He produced The Dunwich Horror for AIP, directed by Holler and co-written by Curtis Hanson and financed Holler's Paddy. Final films as director for AIP, Corman returned to the director's chair for a gangster film, Bloody Mama, starring Shelley Winters and a young Robert De Niro. It was a big hit at the box office. He also directed a black comedy, Gas SSS, written by George Armitage. It was cut without his permission by AIP, and was a financial failure. United Artists finally agreed to finance his Red Baron project, although they asked to be given emphasis on American characters. Accordingly, it was filmed as Von Richthofen and Brown, shot in Ireland in July 1970. There were several plane crashes during filming and 1 person died. He was going to make a film of Couples, a novel by John Updike for United Artists, and in from a script by Richard Shoup, but decided to take a break from directing. Directing is very hard and very painful, he said in 1971. Producing is easy. I can do it without really thinking about it. New World Pictures. In May 1970, Corman founded New World Pictures, which became a small independently owned production, distribution studio, and were an immediate success with Angels Die Hard, a biker film, and The Student Nurses, directed by Rothman. The Big Dollhouse, directed by Jack Hill in the Philippines, was a big hit, making a star of Pam Grier. The company made a profit of $3.2 million in its first financial year, and Corman says all 11 out of his first 11 films were successful. Angels Die Hard led to a series of biker films, including Angels Hard as They Come, produced by Jonathan Demme with Jack Fisk working as art director. Bury Me an Angel was the first biker movie directed by a woman, Barbara Peters. Corman financed the directorial debuts of Curtis Hanson, Sweet Kill, produced by Corman protégé Tamara Asayev. Student Nurses led to a cycle of nurse pictures, including Private Duty Nurses, Night Call Nurses, The Young Nurses and Candy Stripe Nurses. There was also The Student Teachers and Summer School Teachers. Big Dollhouse was followed by a series of women in prison pictures, such as Women in Cages, The Hotbox, Black Mama, White Mama, The Arena and Caged Heat. Of New World's second year, Corman says 11 of the 12 releases were successful. Corman produced 1 more film at AIP, Boxcar Bertha, the second feature directed by Martin Scorsese, starring David Carradine. He also executive produced Unholy Rollers for AIP. A proposed political satire, The Wild Political Prank, was not made. He made I Escaped from Devil's Island with his brother and produced Cockfighter with Monty Hellman, which was a rare financial failure for New World. A big hit was Big Bad Mama, a gangster film directed by Carver and starring Angie Dickinson. It led to a follow-up, Crazy Mama, produced by his wife and directed by Demme. In 1975, Corman said New World was the most successful independent film company in the country, if you count AIP as a major. He said they were the best of the cheap acts. Distributing foreign films. In the 1970s, the major Hollywood studios were moving away from distributing foreign arthouse pictures. New World moved into the market and became the U.S. distributor for Cries and Whispers, directed by Ingmar Bergman. Corman bought it for $75,000 and it earned over $2 million at the U.S. box office. And Corman's distribution side of New World brought many foreign films to mass audiences in the U.S. for the first time. Reportedly some played at drive-ins and grindhouses, including the works of François Truffaut, Peter Weir, Federico Fellini, Joseph Losey, Volker Schlöndorff and Akira Kurosawa. New World also released Fantastic Planet. In a 10-year period, New World Pictures won more Academy Awards for Best Foreign Film than all other studios combined. 20th Century Fox. He had a 4-picture deal with 20th Century Fox, making Capone, Fighting Mad, Moving Violation and Thunder and Lightning. Peak of New World. Death Race 2000, written by Robert Thom and directed by Paul Bartel, was a big hit, earning $4 million. It helped inspire a series of car chase movies: Cannonball, directed by Bartel; Eat My Dust, directed by Griffith starring Ron Howard, which led to a follow-up, Grand Theft Auto, Howard's directorial debut. There was also The Great Texas Dynamite Chase, Death Sport and Smokey Bites the Dust. New World's trailers were cut by Joe Dante and Alan Arkush. Corman gave them the chance to direct together, with Hollywood Boulevard, which used outtakes from other New World films. It was successful enough for Corman to give both men jobs directing features on their own. Dante with Piranha and Arkush with Rock'n'Roll High School. Piranha was written by John Sayles, who had been discovered by Corman's story editor, Francis Doel. Sayles later wrote The Lady in Red for Corman, which was directed by Louis Teague. Other popular films around this time included Tidal Wave, a Japanese film to which Corman added some extra footage, and Jackson County Jail. He also financed I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. Less popular was Avalanche, a disaster film directed by Corey Allen. For Universal he made Fast Charlie. The Moonbeam Rider, directed by Carver. He financed Bogdanovich's St. Jack. Corman was criticized when he insisted on the addition of footage featuring a rape for humanoids from the deep. The success of Star Wars inspired New World's most expensive film yet, Battle Beyond the Stars. This film required extensive special effects, prompting Corman to buy a movie studio in Main Street, Venice for $1.5 million. Corman made a TV film for CBS, The Georgia Peaches. Battle Beyond the Stars was so successful Corman had its footage and music score reused in other films such as Galaxy of Terror and Forbidden World. He picked up a film called The Personals which enjoyed success. Millennium Films. Corman sold New World Pictures in January 1983 to a consortium of 3 lawyers for $16.9 million. Under the terms of the contract, he agreed to stay on as a consultant for 2 years and to provide New World with at least 5 films they could release. New World agreed to distribute all of Corman's films until March 1984. He set up a new production company, Millennium, the title of which was taken from the name of a 1981 retrospective of Corman's work at the National Film Theatre of London. He announced plans to make films budgeted between $2–5 million using cash from his sale of New World to finance personally. He announced an intention to make fewer commercial films, movies more like I Never Promised You a Rose Garden and Cries and Whispers. Millennium's films included Space Raiders, a science fiction epic using footage and music from Battle Beyond the Stars; Love Letters, a serious drama from Amy Holden Jones; Screwballs, a sex comedy in the vein of Porky's; Suburbia, directed by Penelope Spheris, which he acquired; Deathstalker, and Kane of Dark Planet. New Horizons. Corman says people struggled with the name, Millennium. Nobody could spell it, nobody knew what it meant, so he changed it to New Horizons by early 1984. Corman and the new owners of New World ended up suing each other in March 1985. Corman claimed that New World failed to honor their guarantee to distribute his movies at a fee of 15%. He sought $400 million in damages and the return of the company. He said they refused to distribute School Spirit and Wheels of Fire. He also claimed that New World cheated him distributing Space Raiders, Screwballs and Slumber Party Massacre. New World sued Corman in return, claiming he was seeking to return to distribution, and was discrediting New World to potential investors. They said Corman bypassed New World for some of his films, such as Columbia's Hard Bodies. Corman argued, "My whole point in selling was to free myself of the burden of running the company and to get guaranteed distribution. If I can't get my guaranteed distribution, I'm forced to go back to running the company." Concorde Pictures. The case with New World settled out of court. In March 1985, Corman announced he would establish a new distribution cooperative, Concorde Pictures, where producers could get relatively cheap distribution from Concorde in exchange for contributing to the company's overhead. Their first releases were Corman Productions' School Spirit, Wheels of Fire and Barbarian Queen. Concorde later merged with a low-budget production company, Cinema Group, and announced plans to make 15 to 20 films a year. Early Concorde releases include Loose Screws, a sequel to Screwballs; Streetwalkin', a more serious drama directed by Joan Freeman; Cocaine Wars, the first in a series of movies Corman would finance in South America; Hour of the Assassin, shot in Peru, and the first film directed by Luis Loza, and Munchies, a spoof of Gremlins directed by Tina Hirsch. Corman also remade Not of This Earth and released Big Bad Mama 2, and Transylvania Twist. All three were directed by Jim Wynorski. He produced another version of Mask of the Red Death, directed by Larry Brand. He produced Sweet Revenge, Slumber Party Massacre 2, directed by Deborah Brock, Andy Colby's Incredible Adventure, also directed by Brock, and The Terror Within, directed by Thierry Knotts. Corman financed the early directorial efforts of Carl Franklin, Vargas Llosa and Cat Shea. Stripped to Kill 2. More experimental was Nightfall. After Hour of the Assassin, he made a series of films in Peru, including Crime Zone, also directed by Luis Loza, and Full Fathom 5, directed by Carl Franklin. Concorde had a big hit with Bloodfist, starring Don the Dragon Wilson, which cost $1 million and earned over $6 million. Concorde signed Wilson to a long-term contract, and he made a number of sequels for the company, including Bloodfist 2 and Fighting to Win. Frankenstein Unbound. He returned to directing once more with Frankenstein Unbound. Concorde and New Horizon in the 90s. In 1990, Concorde sued MGM for $6 million. Concorde's films included Overexposed, The Unborn, and In the Heat of Passion. They had a big hit with Carnosaur, which led to several sequels. He financed Fire on the Amazon, which had Sandra Bullock and Craig Sheffer in early roles. Corman had to deal with the decline of the drive-in market and studio competition through the 1990s, but Concorde New Horizons still made 15 to 24 pictures a year. This included a never-released version of the Fantastic Four. Roger Corman Presents. In 1995, Corman was executive producer on Roger Corman Presents, a special series of 13 movies for Showtime with budgets of around $1.5 million each. "I think the Corman name means action, humor and some titillation," says Mike Elliott, the producer of the series. "It's going to deliver the goods, and it will have a little moral statement in there as well." Corman ended up doing a second season of 11 movies. The films were Bram Stoker's Burial of the Rats, Hellfire, Virtual Seduction, Suspect Device, Unknown Origin, Terminal Virus, Where Evil Lies, Vampirella, Shadow of a Scream, Subliminal Seduction, House of the Damned, The Haunted Sea, Alien Avengers and its sequel, Inhumanoid, Sawbones, Not Like Us, and Last Exit to Earth. He created his own comic book franchise, Black Scorpion, which led to a sequel and later a TV series. Corman also executive produced remakes of The Wasp Woman, Humanoids from the Deep, A Bucket of Blood, Piranha and Not of This Earth. Ireland. Concorde set up operations in Ireland as Concorde Annoys, building studios in Connemara, County Galway. He received some support from the Irish government, a decision which became controversial when the content of some Corman productions such as Criminal Affairs was criticized in the press. Later Concorde New Horizons films included Overdrive. "The genres still hold," said Corman in 1997, action-adventure, the suspense thriller, science fiction and horror. "The difference is that they are bigger and better now." Corman also produced the film Moving Target, which was filmed in County Galway. It was his last film produced with Concorde New Horizons. Roger Corman's Cosmic Comics. Corman operated a short-lived comic book imprint in 1995–1996 called Roger Corman's Cosmic Comics. It produced comics based on his films, written and drawn in a similar no-hold-barred style. Titles included Bram Stoker's Burial of the Rats, Caged Heat 3000, Death Race 2020, Welcome to the Little Shop of Horrors and Rock and Roll High School, the latter featuring the Melvins. Notable creators published by Cosmic Comics included Trevor Goring, James Kachalka, Jason Lutz, Pat Mills, Shane Oakley, Jerry Prosser, and J.R. Williams. The longest-running title was Death Race 2020, which lasted 8 issues, but was left unfinished when the company closed down. Later career. Sci-Fi Channel. He continued to produce creature films, such as Raptor. Dinocroc, which aired on the Sci-Fi cable television channel and was popular enough for 2 sequels, Supergator and Dinocroc vs. Supergator, as well as a spin-off film, Dinoshark. Supergator was turned down by the Sci-Fi Channel, but Corman made it anyway. Corman also continued to make action films. Escape from Afghanistan was a Russian film, Peshawar Waltz plus some additional footage. The Hunt for Eagle 1 and The Hunt for Eagle 1. Crash Point were shot in the Philippines. Roger Corman's Operation Rogue, Fist of the Dragon. In 2006, Corman said he made 60% of his films overseas. "These foreign countries are offering subsidies that are so great that not only I but many independent producers are moving overseas," he said. He sold the remake rights of Death Race 2000 to Universal, who made Death Race with Jason Statham, with Corman credited as executive producer. It led to 2 direct-to-video prequels and 1 direct-to-video sequel. In 2009, Corman produced and directed alongside director Joe Dante the web series, Splatter, for Netflix. The protagonist of the film is portrayed by Corey Feldman, and the story talks of the haunting tale of rock and roll legend Johnny Splatter. He also started contributing trailer commentaries to Dante's web series Trailers from Hell. In 2011, Corman cited James Cameron's Avatar and Christopher Nolan's Inception as examples of great imagination and originality. By now, the Sci-Fi Channel was Corman's leading market. For them, he made Sharktopus and Piranhaconda. Corman produced the 2017 film Death Race 2050, a sequel to the 1975 film Death Race 2000. It was made with Universal, Corman's first film with a major studio in a long time. Personal life: Corman married Julie Halloran in 1970. They have 4 children. On April 3, 2018, a lawsuit by Corman's sons, Roger Martin Corman and Brian Corman, was filed against Corman to prevent the trade of his film collection. It was later dropped.